The very beginning of this story is as unexpected as the visitor itself, a frog, or perhaps a toad. I can never tell. Now, this little creature found its way into my living room, an unwelcome guest in the most peculiar place. Back then, I was on a journey of self discovery and I was exploring deeper meanings and ancient symbols. And it's a time I call my Ankh awakening because the symbol I'm talking about is the Egyptian Ankh. So I was guided to create an art piece and I embroidered this beautiful wall tapestry and I created this golden ankh. And during those 3 days, yeah, it was a period of 3 days that something shifted in me drastically. I think the symbol activated something in me. Anyway, so yeah, and after college, I was never interested in the usual routine chasing meaningless goals. I did not know what I was here for. I had no purpose per se. I was not interested in joining the rat race. Like, I was never that person. I could not compete to save my life. Regular jobs never clicked for me longer than a month or two. I was a perpetual intern looking down upon my employees. Yeah, I was quietly undermining their skill issues, but I always had gratitude for the opportunity. I was a good employee though, but I didn't like being taken advantage of. Yeah, and internships offer just that. I was really a perpetual intern. Money used to be a mystery to me. It wasn't something I actively chased or even worried about. It just did not click for me until I faced my Saturn return. Money was like a whole different language I did not understand. But that changed as I discovered my passion. I began to appreciate what money could do, especially since I was making money by doing what I love. But I also noticed the potential downsides. Now, this awareness is helping me detach from the pressure of chasing money because it's very easy to fall into that trap. It happens to the best of us, I believe. We really need to be vigilant. I recognized money's potential to create positive changes, but also the danger it posed if it became the sole motivator. Now, finding my purpose ignited a passion for creating this channel, a space to share knowledge and connect with all of you. Your presence, your support has become a source of immense gratitude for me, and those familiar with my channel will recognize the rooster's presence here since the very beginning. The significance of both the frog and the rooster will be revealed shortly. Now, the story actually begins with my third frog encounter, which happened under the June 2024 new moon. Yeah, fear, like an old friend, greeted the frog visitor, and I saw him and ran for my life, like always. Lately, I'd been feeling a simmering anger within, and despite this inner turmoil, I kept a calm exterior. And June began with readings for old friends. A shift in their energy readily apparent. Many sought guidance after a long disconnect. Yet I felt a deep compassion and disconnect with everyone all at once. It wasn't lack of motivation or fatigue or anything. I just felt a profound anger bubbling beneath the surface. I felt angry and out of place. So on 7th June 2024, right after the 6/6 portal, I woke up feeling very overwhelmed. I locked myself in my meditation room and I tried to calm down with a guided meditation. But as I sat down, tears streamed down my face. It wasn't just normal crying, it was intense. Almost like I was shocked. I was shocked, yes, but I was like sobbing in short bursts, It felt involuntary. With like with a strange rhythm to the movements of the very process of crying. I cried for half an hour in what felt like the waves of 3 by 3, like three sharp inhaling sobs came in triplets after triplets, and there was a rhythm to it. And even though my body was crying uncontrollably, my mind felt strangely calm, disconnected again, almost like I was watching it all happen from a distance, because I could not feel the pain. No. And it felt like I was crying for people who couldn't cry for themselves. And I am aware that I have a very transpersonal design, and my life is very much about the transpersonal karma. I am a born heretic. Anyway, after the crying subsided, I stayed down in the Shavasana and I couldn't help but laugh. Like, I started laughing out of control at the whole bizarre experience. And a few hours later, the name, wait for it. Yeah, I'm gonna name drop. Yeah, the name Abraxas emerged during my research on archons, because I was like, what is going on with me? Who is around me? I could not pinpoint. Now, when I read this name, a spark of recognition ignited. I just knew in that moment that there is a frog connection. Previously unknown to me, Abraxas is linked to both frogs and roosters. Now you see. So the initial draw came from the presence of my grandfather's name. Yes, Abraxas pulled me in because it shared the first 4 letters with my grandfather's 5-lettered first name, and a very strong and comforting connection for me. My grandfather is with me in spirit. I lost him in 2021, but I feel like the connection is so much more stronger since he left this realm, and I know he's always around. Anyway, so yeah, that got my attention. Now, learning about Abraxas's energy following this intense crying session, it left me feeling like I was caught in a beautiful, mysterious web, and kind of like spooky. Because am I the weaver, or am I simply part of the design? The answer remains really unclear, but one thing is certain: I feel loved and supported. Yes, and I am excited to share this journey with you. So buckle up, because this story is far from over. Part of me craves clarity, yet a feeling persists that a straightforward path wouldn't hold my attention. Yeah. And Abraxas may be shrouded in mystery, but I will share what knowledge I have gathered in hopes of untangling this web. So I am going to talk a bit more about this energy. I'm just calling it energy. It's not an entity. It's not a deity. It's not a god. It's none of that. Not to me. Now, Abraxas emerged from my story as more than just a curious amalgamation of frog and rooster. this energy is a gateway to a very fascinating and a very complex world of Gnosticism. It's the occult section of Christianity, and most religions tend to have an occult sect. Like in Islam, it is Sufism. And I think this is relevant because I had my awakening in the year 2020, and it had a lot to do with a book I was reading by this ancient author. And yes, he was into Sufism. It was a book on Sufism, actually. It was mostly cosmology and metaphysics. But, it led to my spontaneous awakening. And 2020 is a relevant year because it's also when Carl Jung's Black Book was published for the first time. And it's in the Black Book that he gives a proper hint as to the energy of Abraxas, with disclaimers, which is very much important here, because humans have a tendency to get into that worship role and just fall on their knees and make everyone their god. That's something that is not encouraged here on my channel. Now, Gnostic texts depict a cosmos vastly different from the mainstream Christian view. The material world is often seen as flawed. It's even considered a prison created by a lesser god, the demiurge. Abraxas can occupy various positions within this cosmology. He is the divine pleroma for some. So some Gnostic texts depict a realm of pure, unknowable oneness called the pleroma. And Abraxas could represent a being emanating from this realm, a bridge between the formless divine and the created word. Now, the demiurge. Alternatively, Abraxas could be the demiurge itself, the flawed creator god responsible for the material world. And this interpretation aligns with the destructive or malevolent aspect sometimes attributed to Abraxas. Now, in some other traditions, Abraxas plays a redemptive role, by recognizing its limitations and imperfections. The demiurge sets the stage for liberation from the material world and a return to the divine pleroma. And pleroma can be considered everything that is. Anyway, now let's talk a bit about the symbolism at play, especially in my story. The recurring frog and rooster motifs in my experience resonate powerfully with Abraxas' symbolism. Now, the frog in various cultures represents creation, transformation, and the unconscious mind. The rooster symbolizes vigilance, awareness, and the dawn. And its presence could represent the awakening I'm experiencing, a heightened awareness of the deeper forces at play in my life, perhaps nudged by Abraxas. It could suggest a connection to the collective unconscious, a realm of shared human experience potentially influenced by Abraxas, and I'm essentially a collective channel by design. Plus, when you read for the ones who are close to you, like I told you guys, I read for some of my really old friends, and I was really, I had so much empathy come to the surface during those days. In 3 days I read for 3 people, back to back, and they were somehow connected with each other, but their stories were so different, and there was so much pain and suffering in the world, and everybody is dealing with their own issue, and it's also different, but pain is the uniting force, apparently. And that also made me feel a certain way, and I was definitely overwhelmed. And there's this feeling of being caught in a web, and it suggests a connection to a larger plan, perhaps a mysterious tapestry being woven. And yeah, I think I have a lot to do with tapestries for some reason, and I love those, and I love making those. I want to create really huge tapestries, like big wall tapestries. Anyway, so this aligns with the Gnostic concept of the unfolding drama of creation itself. And maybe Abraxas is a significant player, because I did a deep dive and I did some research on this energy. So let's talk about that, So apparently, Abraxas appears in various Gnostic texts, but the truth is his true nature remains shrouded in mystery. There's a lot of speculation out there, and his significance is not entirely talked about in a very clear manner, because it's an elusive energy, which when I read the Black Book passage of Jung, it kind of made sense why, Now, according to the summaries of Basilides, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but this guy is basically an early Christian from Egypt. So Basilides lost writing, and the writings are lost because Alexandria happened. Yeah. So Abraxas was the supreme being, the ultimate ruler of the many realms of existence. And the 8th book of Moses portrays him as the creator, bringing everything into being through laughter. Through laughter, which made me really think about that Shavasana pose that I did after all the crying, and I was laughing like a jerk. Like I was like, what is up, because everything was so funny all of a sudden. Anyway, Carl Jung is a prominent psychologist, and he offered a fascinating perspective on Abraxas. He didn't view it as a literal deity, but rather as a powerful archetype. And that's exactly what I think so too. It's an archetype. It is something that is everything, that is this and that and in between. It's not exactly very defined, So it's a universal symbol embedded in the human psyche, like the archetypes, right? So here's a breakdown of what Jung thinks. So first of all, he talks about the totality of existence. So Jung saw Abraxas as an archetype representing the totality of existence, encompassing both the light and the shadow, good and evil, and it symbolizes the wholeness of the psyche, including both our conscious and unconscious aspects. Then he talks about the shadow self. He emphasized the concept of the shadow, the unconscious part of our personality containing repressed desires, fears, and instincts. And Abraxas, with its darker aspects, could be seen as a representation of the shadow, urging us to confront and integrate it for psychological wholeness. Then confrontation and integration is highlighted, because according to Jung, confronting and integrating the shadow is crucial for personal growth, right? And Abraxas could be a catalyst for this process, And the emotional release I experienced, followed by the appearance of Abraxas, could be interpreted as a step towards shadow integration, because I tend to talk a lot about integration. Maybe Abraxas was like, I'm going to show you what integration is, and I'm like humbled. Yeah, truly. Anyway, so also I really want to talk about the connection between the frog and the rooster again, because in Jungian psychology, frogs are linked to the unconscious mind, right? The very deepest desires and fears are stored here in the unconscious, And the frog's visits actually, yeah, could represent a connection to my unconscious, potentially guided by Abraxas. Now, the rooster symbolizes awareness and confronting the shadow. Its presence might encourage me to become more mindful of hidden aspects of myself, aligning with the process of integrating the shadow represented by Abraxas. Carl Jung, delving into the psyche and the divine, found himself drawn to the Gnostic figure of Abraxas, and this half man, half beast deity held greater significance in Jung's view than the Christian God or Satan. For Jung, Abraxas embodied the primordial paradox, the hermaphrodite of the earliest beginning, the lord of toads and frogs. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Abundance that seeketh union with emptiness. And when I read these lines, I was shook. Because really, I had no idea. So Jung emphasized Abraxas's all-encompassing nature, right, akin to a frog's transformation. He says, he begetteth truth and lying, good and evil, light and darkness, in the same word and in the same act. Wherefore is Abraxas terrible? So this concept resonated with Jung's desire to join the opposites, a path he believed could lead to liberation from guilt itself. And this is where I just want to point out my bio on my personal Insta, and it's been this since past I don't know how many years now, and it goes like, she who sits in the dark is the bringer of light. And when I got to know all this about Abraxas and I thought of my bio, I was like, that's who I am. I have always been this opposing energy. Like I carry the this, the that, and the other too. And I just want to clear this out that Jung absolutely did not worship Abraxas. Nah. So here's what he says about it in the Black Book, which was published in 2020, and that was a very crucial year for us, right? And if you do your own research, Abraxas's amulets and stuff were used to, shield oneself against the plagues in the past and all that. So yeah, it's a protective talisman. Now, in the Black Book, Jung says, now please pay attention, you do not need to seek him. He will find you. He's talking about Abraxas, okay? This is important because please don't go looking to connect with this person, this energy, this person, this energy, okay? Maybe it's a person, maybe it's a incarnate or something. Anyway, so he says, you do not need to seek him. He will find you. Just like Eros. He is the god of the cosmos, extremely powerful and fearful. He is the creative drive. He is form and formation, just as much as matter and force. Therefore, he is above all the light and dark gods. He tears away souls and casts them into procreation. He is the creative and created. He is the God who always renews himself in days, in months, in years, in human life, in ages, in peoples, in the living, in heavenly bodies. He compels. He is unsparing. If you worship him, you increase his power over you. Thereby it becomes unbearable. You will have dreadful trouble getting clear of him. So remember him. Do not worship him. But also do not imagine that you can flee him since he is all around you. You must be in the middle of life, surrounded by death on all sides, stretched out like one crucified. You hang in him, the fearful, the overpowering. personally, Abraxas sounds like karma to me, and because my transpersonal energy came in like that, and yes, it's like the signature of holding and transmuting transpersonal karma itself, so maybe I'm undergoing some sort of like a weird awakening. I'm not so sure of, but the good thing is I'm kind of detached, like my everyday life is not affected, and hopefully it stays that way. Yeah, but yeah, it's spooky. Now let's go beyond Gnosticism a little bit and tap into the Egyptian side of things, because essentially this energy goes back to Egypt. Everything goes back to Egypt. Anyway, while the exact origin of Abraxas remains a mystery, there is some speculation about potential Egyptian connection. Okay, and I'm going to give you some sources here. I'll put it on the screen so that you know. Anyway, so theories of Egyptian influence include Claudius Salmasius. I don't know how to say his name exactly, but I hope that's how it is. Claudius Salmasius. And this is a 17th century scholar, and he proposed an Egyptian origin for Abraxas, but I don't think so he provided any evidence or whatever, but more so I believe, yeah, he was being led by a higher power. Now, there are two other guys, so J.J. Bellarmine and Samuel Sharp, and then they're from the 19th century, and these scholars offer different interpretations with Egyptian roots, especially when it comes to the name, the very name, and even this was mind-blowing because I was like, oh, damn. So Bellarmine suggested that Abraxas might be a compound of Egyptian words, and it could mean the honorable and hallowed word, or the word is adorable. Sharp, now look at this. Samuel Sharp saw it as an Egyptian invocation to the Godhead, which kind of makes sense because they have so many hekaus and an invocation in Egyptian culture, right? So the possible translation to Abraxas is "hurt me not." And when I correlate this knowledge with my experience and all in a day's time, it is mind-blowing because I really was not hurting at all when I was crying like that. Anyway, the question arises though, is Abraxas akin to other Gnostic deities, perhaps like the monad? Unfortunately, the fragmented nature of the evidence makes it difficult to say for sure. He might be a distinct entity within, I don't know, not only the Gnostic myths, but perhaps the very thing that expands beyond any limitations. Our understanding of Abraxas is definitely hampered because we have very limited sources here. And information on Basilides' system, where Abraxas was supposedly central, comes from biased sources because the texts are lost basically, and there are many conflicting accounts too. And when it comes to the Gnostic gems, I don't know, the energy is very enigmatic, and also the amulets, the gems, these gems bear Abraxas' name but offer no further explanation. But I think someone suggested that the talisman was actually worn to protect from Abraxas' interference, and Jung used to wear a ring. Yeah, he used to wear a talisman, an amulet or whatever it was, but yeah, that ring, Abraxas' ring. Plus, there are so many sects in the Gnostic part of the word, and there are variations. And Abraxas mentioned in these texts seems different from Basilides. For example, let's take the example of the Sethians. So that's, the version is very different. But again, they lack clarity, and it makes it very hard to really understand the exact connection. But we should know that Abraxas is not your typical god, Forget about all good or all bad. Abraxas is a mix of both, like a super powerful being with sunshine and a very dark shadow side. And unlike the Christian god and the devil as separate guys, Abraxas has both light and dark, all rolled into one. Think of it like a really powerful flashlight that can shine super bright or cast a very spooky shadow. And Gnostics believed Abraxas brought the divine down to earth. They even made cool charms, right, like I said. And a good luck symbol too, protective, but at the same time, it's not really clear what they were protective of. What were they protecting against, Anyway, so where Abraxas came from is a big mystery. Maybe even, and not maybe, it's a definite link to ancient Egypt. But the name itself might be a secret code because, with the letters adding up to the number of days in a year, like a symbol of change, 365, which I think breaks down to 5 again, change, constant change. And Abraxas wasn't exactly popular with everyone, the church called him a demon, for real. But, the church is so good at doing that, everybody is a demon, except for, anyway. But Abraxas is bigger than just being a good guy or a bad guy. He's about the circle of life, the good times and the bad times, like sunshine and rain. See, I started talking about this concept and I said that it's energy, so I'm going to keep it like that. But essentially now I'm calling him he, so it turned into a being, right? At one point I even said a person, so maybe. What else? I think Abraxas like a magic spell for making things happen with your words, right? It is connected to the word abracadabra, and there is that connection of creating through words. So Abraxas is more like a big idea than just a god. He makes you think about how life is not always black and white, and that words can be pretty powerful. And since they say we are created in the image of God, Abraxas feels far more familiar than most other such godly entities explicitly playing God on earth. But that's just my opinion, which is always changing. Yeah, because, Anyway, I would love to know your divine and also unholy opinions on the topic. And I love you all, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.